In the northeastern stretch of the American landscape, where the dense forests meet the rocky coastlines, lies the small, seemingly inconsequential village of Ebonwood. Known mostly to those who dwell within and around its borders, Ebonwood harbors a secret phenomenon that has puzzled both its inhabitants and the sparse few scholars brave enough to study it. Every 10 years, like clockwork, the village disappears in a dense, enveloping fog, severing itself from the timeline of the outside world. As the 10th year approaches, the air in Ebonwood grows thick with anticipation and a tinge of foreboding. Thomas, the village school teacher and an amateur naturalist, observes the early signs with a mixture of scientific curiosity and underlying dread. He notes in his leather-bound journal the peculiar behavior of wildlife around the village: birds flying erratically, deer congregating near the town square as if seeking sanctuary, and an uncharacteristic silence falling over the woods that border the east side of the village. On the eve of the expected disappearance, the village council, a group of long-standing members including the mayor, the sheriff, and other key figures like Clara, the oldest living resident, convene at the town hall. They discuss preparations and safety measures, all under the glow of old gas lamps that flicker as if sensing the impending darkness. Clara, a sprightly octogenarian with more vigor than many half her age, shares tales of the previous disappearances to a mixed audience of frightened newcomers and stoic old-timers. "The fog comes on little cat feet," she begins, her voice steady, invoking the words of a poet long past. "It sits on the village, looking over harbor and city, silent and complacent. Then, just as silently, it moves on, leaving us to wonder if we dreamt the whole ordeal." Her description, both poetic and eerie, captures the room's attention, grounding them in the reality of their heritage. Outside, as night deepens, Thomas walks through the village, his lantern casting long shadows on the cobblestone paths. He stops by the local inn, where the last rounds of laughter and chatter spill out into the night. The innkeeper, a robust man named Henry, who has seen his share of disappearances, serves his patrons with a jovial demeanor that belies his anxiety. "Drink up," he booms. "For tomorrow, who knows where we'll be?" His attempt at humor does little to mask the underlying tension. As midnight approaches, the first wisps of fog creep into Ebonwood from the eastern woods. The mist is cold, unnatural, and thickens rapidly, swallowing the edges of the village in a dense white shroud. Thomas, standing at the threshold of the inn, watches as the street lamps begin to blur into the haze, their light dimming under the oppressive weight of the fog. The villagers, sensing the change, start to retreat to their homes, securing doors and windows, whispering good nights, or perhaps goodbyes to neighbors and friends. The atmosphere is one of muted fear and wonder, a collective breath held in the quiet before the storm. Inside his cottage, Thomas sits by the window, journal open, pen poised, ready to document whatever comes next. His entries from previous years are a testament to the unexplained, a catalog of personal anecdotes, meteorological impossibilities, and philosophical musings on the nature of time and existence. Across from Thomas's home, young Emily, a curious girl with a penchant for adventure, refuses to sleep. She peers out her window, watching the fog swallow her familiar world. Her parents, seasoned by past events, assure her of safety and continuity, but their words are drowned out by the eerie silence that envelops their home. As the village clock chimes midnight, the fog peaks, a thick curtain that cuts Ebonwood off from the rest of the world. All light seems to die within it, and even sound is muffled, as if the village has been wrapped in a cocoon of cotton. Inside his home, Thomas writes, "The fog is complete, and with it, time bends. It is here, the decade's breath, inhaled back into the lungs of the cosmos. We wait, in the quiet sanctum of our isolation, for the world to exhale us back into existence. In the heart of Ebonwood, as the thick fog blankets every home, street, and pathway, an eerie stillness falls over the village. It's as if time itself has paused, awaiting some unseen signal to resume its relentless march forward. Within this stillness, the villagers find themselves caught between the familiar comfort of their homes and the unsettling unknown of the fog's embrace. Thomas, unable to sleep, continues to write in his journal by the dim light of a flickering candle. His observations become more introspective as the night wears on. The fog not only obscures our sight, but seems to dull our senses to the flow of time itself, he scribbles, his handwriting shaky with the surreal realization of their situation. In this suspended state, minutes feel like hours, and hours could be seconds. We are adrift in a sea of fog, untethered from the chronological anchors of sunrise and sunset. Across the village, in her cozy, well-aged house, Clara sits in her rocking chair, an old quilt draped over her knees. She's lived through more of these disappearances than anyone else in Ebonwood and feels a strange kinship with the mist. To her, it's a curtain drawing back to reveal scenes from the village's past. Tonight her mind wanders back to her childhood, the memories playing out vividly before her, as if the fog were a screen displaying old film reels. She remembers her mother, young and vibrant, teaching her to sew, the sound of laughter, the warmth of the wood stove, an anchor to her reality in the face of the unsettling calm. Meanwhile, the village's young, such as Emily, find the night thrilling and terrifying in equal measure. Along with her best friend Lucas, Emily defies her parents' cautious orders and sneaks out into the fog. The world around them feels transformed, enchanted, and mysterious. As they walk, their voices sound muffled, their footsteps unusually soft on the damp cobblestones. The fog distorts distances, making their familiar neighborhood seem alien and labyrinthine. As they venture further from their homes, Emily and Lucas come across the old town square, where the fog is so dense it seems almost solid. Here they encounter Mr. Harrison, the local baker, who, despite the late hour, is setting out loaves of bread on the benches. His own ritual during the disappearances, based on an old family superstition that feeding the fog keeps it kind. Back at his cottage, Thomas hears a faint tapping at his window. Approaching cautiously, he peers out to see a figure in the fog. It's Sarah, the village's librarian, known for her pragmatic nature and no-nonsense attitude. She gestures urgently for him to open the window. "Thomas, you need to see this," she insists, her voice barely louder than a whisper, as if afraid of being overheard by the night itself. Reluctantly, Thomas follows her to the village library, a sturdy stone building that seems almost immune to the fog's effects. Inside, Sarah leads him to a hidden alcove where ancient village records are kept. By the light of a lantern, they pore over a dusty tome that dates back centuries. It's a diary belonging to the village's founder, and it contains entries that describe the original phenomenon, suggesting it might have an ancient and possibly supernatural origin. "The founding of Ebonwood was no accident," reads one cryptic passage. "We came here, guided by dreams of a shrouded land, promised by shadows that whispered of a place between times." As they discuss the implications, Thomas and Sarah realize that the village's periodic disappearances might be tied to something much older and more profound than mere weather patterns. Outside, the fog continues to press against the windows, a silent observer waiting for the villagers to uncover the secrets it guards. Emily and Lucas, still wandering the streets, find themselves drawn towards the outskirts of the village, where the fog grows even thicker, obscuring the path ahead and hinting at mysteries yet to be revealed. In the suffocating embrace of the fog, the air thick and motionless, Ebonwood seemed almost removed from existence. The village, lost to time, now served as a canvas for the past to paint its vivid tales. Back at the library, Thomas and Sarah were surrounded by stacks of old books and manuscripts, the musty smell of aged paper filling the room as they dug deeper into the village's enigmatic origins. Each document they unearthed revealed more about the strange circumstances surrounding Ebonwood's founding. The diary of the village founder, Edward Millstone, contained various entries filled with peculiar dreams and ominous premonitions that guided him to this exact spot, believed to be a nexus of unseen energies. The dreams were always the same, Thomas read aloud from the brittle pages. Visions of a shrouded village, whispers in the mist calling me to forge a haven that bridges the veils of reality. The two looked at each other, a mutual recognition of the gravity of their findings reflected in their eyes. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the village, Emily and Lucas had unwittingly ventured near the old Greenwood boundary, where the land dipped into gentle valleys shrouded in thicker, almost palpable mist. Here, the fog seemed to whisper, a soft susurration that sounded almost like voices. Emily, her curiosity overcoming her trepidation, led Lucas down the sloping ground toward the source of these whispers. As they moved, shapes began to form in the mist, ghostly outlines of buildings that no longer existed, remnants of what might have been Ebonwood's original settlement before it was moved to its current location centuries ago. These spectral structures flickered in and out of view, as if the fog were teasing the children with glimpses of the past. In one haunting moment, Emily thought she saw children, much like themselves, playing among the ruins, their laughter echoing eerily through the fog. She reached out, her hand moving through the cold mist, feeling an unexpected shock of emotion, sadness, longing, and a deep sense of nostalgia. Back in the village center, Clara, still in her rocking chair, was lost in memories brought forth by the enveloping fog. The scenes playing out in her mind were clearer now. Her own childhood, the community gatherings, the past disappearances. Each memory was detailed, colored with the emotions and sensations of those times. The fog, she realized, wasn't just a physical phenomenon. It was a medium, bringing forth the collective memories of the village, a shared history that bound the community together. Her reverie was interrupted by a soft knock at the door. It was Janet, the village nurse, who had been making rounds to ensure everyone was safe and calm. Janet noticed Clara's distant gaze and sat beside her, gently prompting her to share her thoughts. "It's all here," Clara murmured, gesturing to the air around her. "The fog remembers, Janet. It remembers us all." Moved by her words, Janet listened intently as Clara recounted tales of the earlier disappearances, each story shedding light on the enduring mystery enveloping their lives. As night deepened, Thomas and Sarah continued their research, uncovering references to ancient rites and protective measures, rituals that Edward Millstone and the early settlers might have used to safeguard the village from the darker aspects of the mist. They found maps detailing ley lines that intersected right under the village, possibly explaining the unusual energy fluctuations and the recurring fog. Compelled by this discovery, they decided to explore these ley lines in the morning, hoping to find physical markers that the settlers might have left behind. Their plan was to map these energies, to perhaps understand how to control, or at least predict, the disappearances. In her bedroom, Emily couldn't sleep, the visions of the ghostly children haunting her. She sketched what she saw in her journal, her drawings crude but filled with emotion. Lucas, who had stayed for a sleepover, watched her from his makeshift bed on the floor, equally unsettled by their adventure. The village, shrouded in mist, slept uneasily that night, its inhabitants drifting in a sea of dreams and memories, the past as alive as the present. And as the fog held Ebonwood in its silent grip, the boundaries between then and now continued to blur, revealing that the village was much more than a mere spot on a map. It was a tapestry of time, woven with the threads of countless lives and stories. Under the cloak of the impenetrable fog, Ebonwood's usual nightfall quietude was disturbed by an unsettling occurrence. The village, now quite familiar with its strange cyclical anomaly, faced a new challenge that night, one that threatened to shake its core. Emily and Lucas, after their eerie encounter at the Woodward house, had hurried back towards their homes, their hearts pounding with both excitement and fear. However, their quick retreat was halted by an unexpected scream piercing through the fog, a desperate, chilling sound that seemed to come from the very heart of the mist. The two friends exchanged worried glances, the thrill of their adventure quickly souring into real concern. Lucas grabbed Emily's arm, his voice barely above a whisper. "Should we go find help?" he asked, his eyes wide with anxiety. But Emily, driven by a blend of concern and a strong sense of responsibility, shook her head. "It came from the North Woods. Let's check it out first. Someone might be really hurt," she insisted, her determination evident despite her trembling voice. As they cautiously made their way towards the source of the scream, the fog seemed to thicken with every step, turning their short journey into an eerie trek. What was normally a 10-minute walk felt like an endless maze of ghostly trees and obscured paths. Every rustle of leaves and snap of twig underfoot heightened their nerves. Meanwhile, at the center of the village, the scream had reached the ears of Sheriff Cole, who had immediately gathered a search party. Equipped with lanterns and heavy ropes, the group included Thomas, who had insisted on helping, and several other villagers. They moved out swiftly towards the North Woods, their lanterns casting small orbs of light that struggled against the overwhelming gray. Back in the woods, Emily and Lucas stumbled upon a small clearing where the fog momentarily thinned. To their horror, they found young Joe, a peer from their school, lying on the ground, his leg caught in an old, rusted bear trap. Despite his efforts to remain quiet, a whimper of pain escaped his lips as he saw Emily and Lucas approach. Lucas immediately knelt beside Joe, examining the trap. "We need to get this off him," he said, looking around for something to pry open the trap's fierce jaws. Emily, meanwhile, tried to comfort Joe, her voice a soothing whisper amidst the haunting silence of the fog. As the sheriff's search party neared the clearing, guided by the faint sounds of Emily and Lucas's voices, they were relieved to find the children. Sheriff Cole, with years of experience under his belt, took charge of the situation. Using a sturdy branch as a lever, he managed to release the trap, freeing Joe's badly bruised leg. With Joe unable to walk, the adults fashioned a makeshift stretcher from their jackets and the sturdy branch. The procession back to the village was slow and careful, the fog enveloping them in a silent embrace, as if watching their every move. Upon returning to the village, Janet, the nurse, was ready at the clinic to treat Joe. The incident left the village rattled, a stark reminder of the fog's ability to transform their familiar surroundings into a landscape fraught with hidden dangers. That night, after Joe was settled and the children safely home, the villagers gathered at the town hall for an impromptu meeting. The room buzzed with conversations about safety measures and the need for heightened vigilance, while the fog held sway over Ebonwood. Mayor Johnson addressed the crowd, his voice firm yet reassuring. "Tonight, we were reminded of the perils that come with our unique predicament. Let us take this as a call to watch over each other, to remain united in the face of adversity," he declared, his words echoing off the walls of the crowded hall. As the meeting concluded, Thomas lingered, his mind racing with thoughts. The village's resilience had been tested once again, but it was the unity and collective strength of Ebonwood that had seen them through the night's trials. Yet, as he walked home through the still oppressive fog, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to uncover about the mysterious mist. Secrets that the village and its history still held tight. In the lingering silence following the town hall meeting, the residents of Ebonwood dispersed into the mist-shrouded night with a renewed sense of community and vigilance. The incident with Joe had rattled the village, drawing the tightly knit community even closer. As they returned to their homes, the fog seemed to press in closer, a constant reminder of the village's fragile temporality. Back at his cottage, Thomas couldn't sleep. The events of the evening played over in his mind like a slow, haunting melody. Determined to find some answers, he pulled out his collection of historical texts and old village maps. The soft glow of his lamp illuminated his furrowed brow as he pored over the documents, searching for any clue that might explain the phenomena or perhaps offer a way to mitigate its dangers. Meanwhile, in her home, Clara was similarly awake, her thoughts adrift in the past memories that the fog seemed to stir with its chilly fingers. She pulled out an old chest from beneath her bed, filled with keepsakes and journals from her youth. As she flipped through the pages, she stumbled upon a series of entries detailing a particularly dense fog from many years ago, one that had lasted longer than any other. Her younger self had written about strange occurrences, unexplained lights in the fog, soft whispers at night, and shadows that moved against the logic of light. Each entry was a puzzle piece in the vast mosaic of Ebonwood's mysterious history. In a different part of the village, Emily and Lucas, now safely at home but too stirred up to sleep, recounted their night's adventure to each other over the phone. Their conversation was a mix of excitement and fear, each reinforcing the other's bravery and quick thinking. "We really did something important today," Emily said, her voice a mix of pride and awe. "We were part of the village's story, Lucas, like really part of it." Lucas responded with equal enthusiasm. "Yeah, it was scary, but imagine what else is out there, hidden by the fog. Maybe we can figure out why this all happens." Their talk sparked a plan to explore more of the village's history, to understand the patterns that might predict when the fog would arrive and its intensity. The next day, under a blanket of heavy mist that seemed reluctant to lift, Sarah and Thomas met at the library to discuss their findings from the previous night. They spread out old maps and documents on the large oak table that dominated the room, each piece potentially a clue to unlocking the mystery of the fog. Sarah pointed to a series of ley lines that intersected right beneath where the old Greenwood boundary used to be. "These lines are channels of geographical energy," she explained, tracing her finger along the faded lines on the map. "Our ancestors believed they could influence spiritual activities and even time itself. What if Ebonwood's founding was influenced by these lines? Maybe they thought they could harness or protect against these energies." Thomas considered this, his mind racing with the possibilities. It could explain the cyclic nature of the fog, its predictability. Maybe it's not just a natural phenomenon, but something more orchestrated. Fueled by this new theory, they decided to visit the location where the ley lines converged. Equipped with compasses and old survey maps, they trekked to the northern edge of the village, where the fog hung even heavier, almost tactile in its density. As they walked, the air around them seemed to thrum with an unspoken energy. Reaching the convergence point, they found an old stone marker, mostly overgrown with moss and ivy, but still standing as a silent sentinel. The stone was carved with symbols that neither Thomas nor Sarah recognized, symbols that suggested a deep, possibly arcane significance. Deciding to delve deeper, they planned to bring these symbols to the attention of a university expert in ancient inscriptions and ley lines. Perhaps, they hoped, this could lead to some understanding or even control over the fog's appearances. Meanwhile, Sheriff Cole, taking the recent events to heart, organized nightly patrols to ensure the safety of all villagers while the fog persisted. His voice, steady and sure, could be heard in the quiet streets, reassuring the nervous residents, "We'll keep watch." Tonight, Ebonwood looks out for its own. As night fell again over Ebonwood, the village settled into a watchful peace. The mist, ever present, seemed to listen and wait, a reminder of the thin veil between the known and the unknown, between the past and the present, between fear and discovery. The dawn that marked the end of the fog's tenure in Ebonwood was unlike any other. A soft, ethereal light filtered through the trees, casting long, ghostly shadows that danced slowly across the dew-soaked earth. As the sun rose higher, the thick veil of mist gradually began to thin, revealing the sleepy village as if from a long slumber. In the heart of Ebonwood, the villagers stirred from their homes, blinking in the newfound light, their faces marked with relief and the weariness of a prolonged ordeal. Among them, Thomas and Sarah, now armed with newfound knowledge and a glimmer of hope, discussed their next steps. They had sent images of the ancient symbols found on the stone marker to a professor specializing in ley lines and archaic inscriptions, eagerly awaiting his insights. Meanwhile, at the local clinic, Janet tended to Joe, whose leg was healing well, all things considered. The boy's resilience had become a talking point among the villagers, symbolizing Ebonwood's collective strength and determination. As his mother thanked Janet, she shared a heartfelt sentiment that resonated well beyond the walls of the clinic. "This village, our home, it's more than just a place. It's a living, breathing entity that looks after its own, even when shrouded in mystery." Outside, Mayor Johnson and Sheriff Cole coordinated a community gathering in the village square. The event was both a celebration of their safe return to normalcy and a forum to discuss the lessons learned from this latest disappearance. The mayor addressed the crowd, his voice echoing slightly off the surrounding buildings. "Every time the fog descends, we're reminded of the fragility of our existence and the strength of our community. Let's use this experience to grow stronger, more connected, and better prepared." The children, Emily and Lucas among them, ran around the square, their laughter a balm to the adults' frayed nerves. Their fearless exploration and the role they played in rescuing Joe had not gone unnoticed, and they were hailed as young heroes. Their parents watched with a mix of pride and relief, grateful for their safe return and inspired by their bravery. As the day wore on, Thomas received a call from the professor, who had intriguing news about the symbols. "They are indeed ancient, possibly druidic in origin, and similar to those used in rituals to harness natural energies," the professor explained. "It's likely that these symbols were part of a larger network, designed to protect the village by controlling the energies along the ley lines." This revelation sparked a wave of excitement and curiosity in Thomas and Sarah. They proposed a project to the village council to explore this network further, suggesting that understanding it could be key to predicting or even controlling the fog. The council, intrigued and motivated by the recent scare, agreed to fund their research, providing them with the resources needed to delve deeper into the mystery. As the village slowly returned to its daily routines, the fog became a distant memory, a shadow of the past that had once again left them untouched, but not unchanged. The community's bonds had been strengthened, their resolve hardened, and their curiosity about their origins deepened. The last light of the day casting long shadows across the faces of the Ebonwood residents as they gathered around a newly erected monument in the village square, a simple stone plinth engraved with the names of all the villagers, past and present, who had lived through the fog's embraces. It stood as a testament to their enduring spirit and a symbol of their unyielding connection to each other and to the mysterious land they called home. Ebonwood, for all its quirks and mysteries, was more than just a village. It was a testament to human resilience and the profound connection between a community and its land. As night fell, the stars appeared one by one above, a serene watch over the village, promising another day of peace and normalcy, yet holding the silent acknowledgement of mysteries yet to unravel. As the sun rose over Ebonwood, its rays cutting through the last tendrils of morning mist, the village was transformed. The fog, a symbol of isolation and mystery for so long, now seemed a distant memory. Yet its legacy continued to shape the village and its people in profound ways. Thomas and Sarah stood at the edge of the village, near the convergence point of the ley lines they had begun to explore. They were equipped with new tools for measuring geophysical energies, provided by the enthusiastic village council. Their project had ignited a sense of purpose and excitement within the community, a collective endeavor that promised to unlock the secrets of their past and perhaps ensure their future safety. In the village square, Mayor Johnson unveiled the new monument, a simple yet elegant structure that acknowledged the resilience and unity of Ebonwood. This stone is not just a marker of where we've been, but a beacon for where we're going, he declared to the gathered crowd, who nodded in agreement, their faces alight with a mixture of pride and anticipation. The ceremony was followed by a festival, a tradition that had started after the first recorded disappearance, but had since evolved into a celebration of their heritage and a testament to their survival. Stalls lined the streets, selling everything from homemade goods to historical memorabilia, each item a story of Ebonwood's unique history. Children ran through the crowd, playing games that mimicked the legends of the fog, hide and seek for those who vanished, and treasure hunts for secrets of the past. Their laughter and shrieks of delight filled the air, a soundtrack to a community thriving despite, or perhaps because of, its mysteries. Clara, watching from her porch adorned with flowers and banners for the occasion, reflected on the changes she had witnessed over the decades. "We've become keepers of our own story, haven't we?" she mused to Janet, who had stopped by with her medical kit, ever the prepared nurse. "We're not just surviving, we're flourishing," Janet agreed, her gaze sweeping over the festival. At a booth lined with old photographs and documents, Emily and Lucas volunteered, guiding visitors through Ebonwood's history. Their bravery during the fog's last visit had made them minor celebrities, and they took to their roles with enthusiasm. And here, Lucas pointed to a grainy photo from decades ago, you can see how the village looked right after a disappearance. Notice how nothing seems aged. It's as if time itself holds its breath here. Meanwhile, Thomas and Sarah returned from their morning's work, their equipment beeping intermittently with data. They joined the festival, sharing their findings with curious onlookers. "We're mapping the energies around Ebonwood, trying to understand how they might influence the fog," Sarah explained to a group gathered around their booth. Thomas displayed a map marked with various data points, his finger tracing the lines that seemed to pulse with unseen life. As the day turned to evening, the festival culminated in a lantern release. Each villager wrote a wish or a memory on a paper lantern, which they set adrift into the sky. The sight of hundreds of lanterns floating upward, their lights flickering like stars against the twilight, was mesmerizing, a visual promise of the community's continued bond and hope. Thomas and Sarah walking home under the starlit sky, discussing plans to present their research at an upcoming regional conference. "Who knows what we'll discover next?" Thomas said, his voice tinged with excitement and wonder. Sarah smiled, squeezing his hand. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together, as a village," she replied, her words echoing the sentiment of every Ebonwood resident. The mystery of the fog might never be fully unraveled, but the legacy of their shared experiences, their unity, resilience, and insatiable curiosity would continue to define and strengthen them for generations to come. As the lanterns disappeared into the night, Ebonwood remained, a beacon of mystery and community intertwined, its story woven into the very fabric of the land, forever part of the larger tapestry of human endeavor and the timeless dance between man and nature.